I went to Salzburg, and I'll tell you a little bit tomorrow at their meeting, just say a couple words about what Salzburg was like, so you know what the counterparts over there were doing. But I was asked to give two things, one a lecture and one a demonstration on modern dance. And there was this woman from the Kirov school who was the head pianist there, and she gave one on ballet. And in my thinking about it, because I wanted to talk about kinesthetic qualities in playing, I realized in talking about, for me, in talking about ballet, one of the things which I didn't have to do, but ballet, the kinesthetic qualities is the most important sense that a musician in dance has. Highly developed kinesthetic qualities. I began to make the differentiation, though, for me in ballet. I know in both areas it takes that quality, but in ballet a person can have a lot greater success with great stylistic control and understanding. You can get a long ways with those understandings, the ability to have stylistic control and an understanding for quality from that point of view. In modern dance, though, it's the one and the only indispensable thing of all the questions, whether of technique, of stylistic control, of any other quality. It's kinesthetics that makes the person hireable. Now, we've all heard people who play in all kinds of different styles and with all kinds of different technical abilities and with all kinds of different ear abilities. And it doesn't seem to matter too much, because I know some people who are tremendously successful who don't have good ears, who don't have good stylistic control, and who don't have good technique, but who are very successful in the field. And why is because they have that kinesthetic sense. So for me, it's the one indispensable, that sense for movement and that sense of some way of translating it into sound. Now, all musicians who have some degree of technical mastery have some strong sense of kinesthetic sense, because it is the kinesthetic sense that is required to feel what works right on your instrument, how to make it technically happen. The people who have that innately are the people who have great natural virtuosic talent. The others of us who have to struggle for it, developing your kinesthetic sense for your own instrument, that's the job, though. Some people just never do technically anything wrong physically. They would never make certain motions because they could feel innately that it wouldn't work, And so speed and brilliance come naturally to them. The rest of us who maybe struggle and do tense things at our instrument, that leads us in directions that we have to take years of undoing. But the basic quality, and here's the thing about dance that is so difficult, and what we always look for when we're looking for people at our institutions to work for us, is that person who can feel that kinesthetic quality through their eyes. Now that's the weird thing. You can be greatly in tune with your body, and I know tons of dancers who are, and have this innate kinesthetic sense of how to use their body. I know many musicians who are. The real thing that differentiates us is that we can see it through our eyes, and have a responsive sense in our bodies of what that feels like. Now, some people say, "Oh, a dance musician should have taken class." I don't believe it at all. I see plenty of dance musicians who have never danced and are really uncoordinated when they stand up. That's not the deal at all. And I've noticed, I'm not convinced that it even helps necessarily to have taken class. And dancers will think that that's important, and they'll say that to us. For me, what I notice is that those people who have the eyes and that sympathetic feeling. Now, Everybody at some level has that, because why do people like to go to dance concerts? Because they sit there in their chairs, still, and through their eyes, they have this tremendous kinesthetic rush. So they see somebody leap, and they have this wonderful feeling inside them, and they didn't move a muscle, you know? And so there is the mystery of it right there. Now, the real thing, the people, and I'm talking to a group of people who all have this ability. You know, these are people, this is what you do for your living. This is your ability. So in a way today, one of our things that we're just sort of talking about, this thing that we already have, okay? Now, it's not only that though. So the first thing is the ability to see through your eyes and have this response, even in stillness, that is of incredible sympathetic response, and knowing what it feels like. You know, the amazing thing about musicians for dance is they're not leaping, but they know exactly what it feels like and exactly what it will take, which is the next step musically, to propel that thing. Having never leaped across the floor, they still know what it feels like and still know how to get something musical. So the next thing is, you see, you feel, and the other part of the art is how can you translate that into some way musically? Well, most people who have the feeling very strongly can find a way somehow to get something going musically that gets that quality. And like I say, I've seen people with very bad musical skills who have the ability to get something happening. And it's because their kinesthetic gift is so great. So it's eyes, a feeling in the body, then being able through your ears and stuff to make something happen musically. Now, that's part of the art of the art, and I noticed there, Lynn Messick said, where said yesterday today, I mean, I thought about it after our sessions playing in the studio. She said, yeah, but you know, this is basically an intuitive thing. It's a hard thing to talk about because it is so intuitive. You go there to the piano or whatever your instrument is, and you go, you know, you watch the thing up there and you go, and you go. And that's the art of the art, isn't it? All the rest is sort of talk because it has to be a kinesthetic thing. And kinesthetic thing is not something you can really talk about very much. And it has to be an intuitive impulse. And it's just, what we're doing is developing these impulses. We're developing these kinesthetic, intuitive impulses as highly as we can. And the more highly we develop these in ourselves, and the more highly we are in tune to that, the better. And you'll see people playing for, you know, for class, and they're leery about jumping in because they know they haven't got, you know, in these yesterday, because they haven't got their body sort of into it. And so how do you do it? You know, you sit on the piano and you haven't sort of done this thing of, okay, it's sort of happening now and they're moving and I'm sort of making that connection. To go from 0 to 60 is really hard in this situation. And our lot, what we do is so intuitive in that way. You feel really sort of out on a limb because you don't know whether it's going to come through next time for you or not, you know? So there's that incredible mystery about it, and what I'm going to do to start with is I like to focus on it a little more concretely than that, though, about how it is. And let's see, I'm going to ask. We're going to do this little demo that I do with the students, and so I'm going to ask you all to, unless you are uncomfortable with it either for some reason of what you are wearing or something, to lie down on the floor. I find that receptive thing a little easier to do. Could you find a spot just where you lie down? If it's uncomfortable for you in some reason, you may sit in your chair, but I find it helps the lie down on the floor somewhere.
So this will be the last year. Don't say the attention photo.
Why is there both her chairs?
Oh, this is so different.
Linda, can we go?
Now we all have to play sardines to see how much we
Way down there?
Now, I this with my students to open them up to sound, but it has been an interesting thing for me to what dancers particularly find places to lie down.
There's lots of room over here by the piano.
Yeah, there's room over on this side. Everybody knows this, and when you do this intro to your classes and you say, you know, sound is all around you and all that, okay. That's what that is. Now, I'm going to ask you simply in this exercise I'll play, I'm just going to play a couple little sounds, and I'm going to ask you to tell me where in your body the sensation of those sounds is itching physically. So that I'm going to ask people after to describe where physically they felt the sounds. Okay? You understand? Yeah. Okay. Okay, physically, I'm going to point at, you felt the stomach. Where? Feet, wait, where did you feel yours? Feet. Where in your feet? The very bottom of your feet.
Legs.
Where in your legs?
Thighs.
Thighs, and sort of side of the thigh. Something like that. Yep.
My hands and feet.
Your hands and feet.
With our hands on our torso when we're sitting.
Like
My stomach.
your stomach. Okay.
Lower stomach.
Where?
About 3 inches below the navel.
Below the navel.
Chest.
Your chest.
Lower chest.
Your chest. Lower chest. Pelvis and upper thighs.
Rib cage.
Right above the rib cage. Now, already I hope you're noticing.
We're all wrong, right?
Well, no. You should have felt this in your knees, you dummies. Okay, we're going to do a couple more of these. What are you thinking right now when you realize, what's the extrapolation of this, when you realize right away the variety of physical places that sound is feeling? I mean, it's sort of obvious, isn't it? Let's do a couple more though. Yeah, anything, doesn't matter, just, okay, you felt it in your face. One mask face, another face. Okay, well,
From the temple, the point here on my forehead to here, it's like a whole. Ooh, wow.
I felt it in the back of my head and my neck.
back of your head and neck. Another dancer, somebody,
My head.
your head. Did you? What?
I felt it more like
Across
nose
there.
area and right behind the ears.
This area right behind, I mean, you realize how bizarre this is? I just want to make you aware that this is very bizarre. Okay, you understand how bizarre? Whatever.
In my eyes.
In your eyes. In your eyes. It's fascinating. Well, I don't know, but when I started doing this, I thought, well, I just assumed that people would sort of feel it in a general kind of way throughout their body. But why is it so specific, and why is it so different for each thing? I mean, maybe it makes total sense. I just sort of assumed that sound waves would emanate around us, and so we'd feel it tingle through our body. You know what I mean? In a general kind of way, but no, it's very specific. It's in the palms of your hands, or in your eyeballs, or in your hair or in your kneecaps. You know, that's very bizarre. Now we're going to try a couple more. I'll do one, and we're going to do two more. I'm going to do one more. Okay. Right, and here we go. Right,
In my lower teeth.
Is there, and notice the motion she's even making, she's going like this. I felt it like this, you know?
My jaw.
Your jaw. Your jaw.
My clenched jaw.
Your clenched jaw. Top of the side of the face and your jaw. In the in the head and fingers.
My wrist.
Your wrists. Wrists. Bizarre. You're weird.
That's completely wrong.
That's completely wrong. That is so wrong. Now, we're going to do a thing in a second. Oh yeah, Ben. Yes.
If we didn't feel that particular one in any place, does that mean that we're called fish?
I would say yes. No. Some people
That means you're a
don't.
ballet pianist.
They might. Ballet pianist. He'd be saying more. He does not feel.
Or could it mean that that particular musical excerpt lacked a claw?
Yeah, we're going to actually we're going to talk about that in a second. Okay. One more, just general one. Larry.
My scalp. Fingers and toes.
What? Fingers and toes. Hands. Wrists. Shoulders right there. Your heart. The back of my, I mean, make sense of this, someone, the back of my throat. Okay, now, we're going to ask in this next one that you, we're going to play a little longer and see if it moves. That's the first question, and the second question, no, just that. See if it moves anywhere. See the direction of where it moves inside your body. Okay? I have no idea. About movement, what happened?
Going from my chest up to my head and out my arms.
Okay, chest up to your head and out your arms.
It's real nice, it's like a filling up kind of feeling from the chest and just radiating out. And when you hit the accents, it's like you can feel it in different, or I can feel it in different parts.
Very good.
Like jump to it.
From here and just kind of like that. You can have an
I can do this one.
And articulation, okay.
My whole left side.
I don't know, Rob. I would consider help.
Actually, I felt like there was certain imagined movement in my pelvis. I felt like it was, in a sense of, since I'm down, I felt like it was levitating a little bit. Like I wanted to travel. It was now a lot easier.
Yes, I'm better seeing.
Through here and up and
Okay. Good. Now, this next one, we're just going to say, you'll feel it in strongly in one area, but as well, there'll be And you'll feel it subtly in other parts, and very, very subtly, sort of the energy radiate through your body. I want to just ask the question if there are, we're going to play and we'll go sort of an expanded area of tonality so it hits a number of tonal kind of ranges of the instruments and things. And I'm going to ask if there are any areas which you feel are blocked in your body that does not. It's a weird here, but it's very weird. But if you gotta lie down. We're listening to sound. I'm gonna ask you to just say if there are any areas which you sense are blocked in your body where sound does not go into. Feeling the sensation in our body and whether there is, and we've identified for people who came in areas that they feel different things in, and now we're going to see if there's any areas which in your body there are no that it doesn't go into. We'll just play a wide range so that we cover a wide range of the instrument throughout the probably just be a tiny bit longer.
There's our kinesthetics Presley.
Yeah, and to move into your hands. What? Okay, areas, I want to hear areas that,
Actually, the very extreme of my hands, my actual hands, stop right at my wrist, and stop right at my neck.
the wrists and ankles and stuff.
I'm a homestead.
What does that mean? So what did you experience? Please tell us.
Wow.
Okay, we're envious.
I was going to say, when Gwen and Larry would do their da-da-dee-da-da-da, it would be like passing from one part of the body up. It would be.
Yes. Were there any areas, the question too is, were there any areas which you feel that sound did not go into?
I didn't feel it in my feet.
Okay.
So like it would feel like it was like going like an up and down, but there wasn't an around feeling like around the backs of my legs or anything.
Okay.
The backs of my arms.
Others? More? Gotta go, oh, okay.
Felt nothing in my hair.
Felt nothing in your hair, okay. In your brain.
It's hard for people. For me, laying on the floor, I felt it everywhere. I felt cello and the piano.
Vibrate. Well, wait, let's go back to your chairs. Let's sit down for this for a minute.
It's strange to hear it,
Okay, the things we can draw from this, okay, we are experienced, all of us, and very open kinesthetically to to feeling and to recreating kinesthetic things. And yet, look at the variety of kinesthetic responses to sound. Tremendously different. This is an age where they're always talking about diversity, so this should show that. And that's a wonderful mystery and a real nice thing. But it also puzzles me when I look at the results of these kinds of things when I do it. I think, of course, there are implications in therapy, in music therapy, for music being therapeutic. Closed areas, blocked areas, areas where, and I've done things where many people have, where you work on finding the sounds for a certain area, if a person is having a problem with that area, and finding sounds that are resonant in that area, and then having the person work on releasing those areas to sound. That's from a purely therapeutic point of view. But from the point of view of what we do, first off, from a dancer's point of view, obviously, dancers who are in touch when they're choreographing, it's one of the things that happens. They feel it in their elbow, in their wrist, in their something, and so they want to move that area. You know, because it feels like it wants to go out or it wants to go out. And that is a primary place where choreography starts, and that's why, too, a piece of music will respond to people so differently, and the choreography they will do will be so different. A useful thing is when you start to draw people's attention to that, and you use this in a way that says, okay, in a class where people are maybe doing some choreography, focus them on their sensations, and say, go from there. Go from those sensations you are feeling to create. Now, I know we have this musically, too. You feel something like that, and you go, boom. The opposite, of course, works. You see a movement, and you have a kinesthetic response, and you might be surprised. So let's do the opposite for a second. Linda, just come out. We're going to pretend that this is the same exercise, only it's our eyes now. And of course, our first response could be we could just take whatever movement she does and put it in the same parts of our body, right? We could just say, oh, she moved her shoulders, so I felt it in my shoulders. I'm going to just see, we're just going to try and open ourselves out and re-explore what we explore every day. We just do anything. But make it sort of short and concise. It's fine. Okay, now, were you able to get anywhere clear on your own physical response? Okay, let's hear some responses. What did you feel in your body?
Well, for me, it happened, the first thing happened was all my focus was drawn to her. And I didn't feel a kinesthetic response. I just sort of became less aware of me and became aware of her.
Very interesting. Very interesting.
I felt something in my chest, but I think it may have been emotional, so kinesthetic.
That's fine. You can't separate the two, I don't think, really. I think the two are linked.
The idea of the sense of weight in it, with that extending of legs and everything.
Where did you feel it?
Well, like here, but
Like here, okay.
I would not be playing high-end the piano to complement that.
Okay. Just stay with for a second. Physically, where you felt. We'll do another one because sometimes our patterns of watching are so ingrained that to get out of that and to to re-see in a new way.
Because we're sitting, maybe it was natural to feel that weight in the thighs. And then when she started moving her arms, there was kind of, I experienced a release of tension, you know, that was not so
Possibly, right?
rapid.
Don't mistrust your own sensation just because you're sitting.
I felt it in the chest, but it was like there was this pulling.
Opposition, pulling,
Yeah.
stretching.
Yeah.
Right, opposition and pulling in your chest.
I simply became her.
Yeah, of course. And because, that's partly because that's what we're trained
And
to do.
therefore I lost myself in the sense of individuality. I hope that doesn't sound like a weakness.
That's
But
exactly,
rather an alignment, such an alignment with what was, that she did for me what I would have done if I could have done that.
that's sort of what Max said too, you know, he sort of lost himself and went into her.
Yeah.
We're going to ask you to do it again, we might ask you to do it a couple more times, not the same, it can be different. And that length is fine. And I like this idea of, stay again with your own sense in it and see what happens. Again. I knew we could count on you, Linda. Yeah, that's interesting. Okay, now, responses. What happened in your body?
Fight or flight.
Yeah, I felt fear.
Fear,
Danger.
yes.
My stomach
Danger
tight.
of the instrument too.
Danger. Absolutely. And so instead of just saying, I felt, where did you feel it? Where did it come actually in your body? Something across here, okay? You felt it in your head.
Yeah.
That danger, or did you?
Yeah.
Okay, where did you?
In the chest.
In the chest. It's like I'm like this,
Oh my God.
like this.
I felt like breathing,
In what kind of a way?
like getting into a pant, feeling it.
Yes.
My stomach tight. I felt like.
Yeah. Okay.
Arms, they were like.
Your arms like this. Okay. Strong sensations back here. Again, the sensations, there are some similarities, but there's a great deal of difference in sensations.
This was interesting for me because I became focused on her feet in the first exercise, so I was wondering if I was really conscious of her feet. For me, the piece didn't start till she was over Larry. This time, I thought, I don't understand her feet anymore. And Larry became a focal point for me, and I saw all this wry humor. And I'm probably the one that saw the wry.
Well, yeah, that's great. One more, and let's. Okay. One more, and let's just go for unity consciousness. Hey, hey, hey. Just go for something. We're just going to go for total union with this dancer, kinesthetically. Okay.
Yes.
Describe your experiences.
I was more aware of not breathing. I was trying to breathe
With her.
with her phrase. Not trying, but it just happened.
Right. Okay. Who else?
That particular dance struck me as not an invitation to music. It was complete in itself.
How about your involvement with her? Were you able to become one with her, your body? And
Yeah,
her
I felt
body?
the experience was complete enough. It needed no
Yeah.
supplement or complement of any
Yeah.
sort.
Okay. Great. Okay. able to, found themselves coming and going from union with her body.
At first I was being pulled down, then it disappeared,
Your
I felt
union with her?
nothing. Right, and then I was being pulled back.
Other responses?
Well, I had a break. I mean, the first part, the melting to the ground, I was right there with her.
Yeah.
And she got down, and the feet happened around there. That was a different idea, and so, for me. And then when she got over to that side of the room, and again was melting, then I was back in that first idea, that same feeling away. But there was a break that happened there for me. It just was a change.
Maybe because it was too.
Well, it was
so
speed in a
fast.
different way. You know, there were a couple of elements to it, I think.
For me, it was a journey from being interesting in the sense of mental, very interesting, very creative, very interesting from the mental started, and it took itself with me along to a deep emotion. So it combined the head with the heart. And in great artistry, which we must certainly have just had an example of, both of these components are usually available and balanced, in fact, in some way of balance, or at least interrelated. And I don't know if I'm going to get a chance to talk during this hour, but I would like to add that if I don't speak during this hour and anyone wishes to hear what I might have said, that I would like to present another side of the same coin of some of the ideas that Bill has brought up, because in the interest of education, not education that I'm educating you, but of us learning from each other, there are some premises he has made that have gone uncontended, and I don't think it's necessary to have a long discussion in this context, but that you should always take a consideration of your own understanding of life, and then ask what anyone says to you, or whether it's, like water off the bat. If the shoe fits, fine, if you can use the information, and that includes dancers, as well as musicians and humans in general, fine, and if it has no relevance for you, then it's just what you were there at the moment it was put in the air, and there are other things to think about slightly later. Where should we go?
I have
I have a question.
Could I just add, because in addition to having our own feelings, we're each sitting in a different place and experiencing you differently. So you experienced her starting there, and from here we saw her roll, and she ended right here. And I was in tears. I was amazed. This was a demonstration, and I was crying.
Well, I noticed that since I was sitting right next to her when she started, I had a very real kinesthetic response to what she was doing, because I could, feel the physical vibration of her being right next to me. And I didn't lose it, I kept it as she went. But on other times when she would come in, I didn't feel that immediate bond, physical bond. So,
Part of our understanding of life is where we are in it.
right.
I have something that this brought up for me, which was, for me, percussion has always been a natural accompaniment to dance because it is so kinesthetic. But I found today that there's like something for me which in melody, for me personally, is not so kinesthetic. And perhaps it's something that, some of the melodic explorations just don't grab me kinesthetically. They respond to different areas, heart and stuff, but it's not as kinesthetic.
And there again, each of us, as you're helping us discover, we may be blocked in various different places, each of us. So personal taste has something to do with us as receivers.
I'm personally interested in the diversity of this whole thing, in the diversity of response. That's what I'm most interested in all this, is that there's just this incredible diversity of response, inexplicable, how people respond to this stuff.
Just want to add one more thing to that. And I've found like in certain styles of dance, percussion is much more of a challenge, say for Limon, things that are very lyrical. Yeah. Whereas for Graham or for some other techniques, I found percussion links kinesthetically in that way.
I don't
don't sense so much, I don't immediately plug into what it is that I am feeling, but rather a sense of what is did I imagine that, for example, that she was feeling, and how do I translate that? What is the translation of that sense to it? Not even as you went down the chair, I found myself seeing if I could actually keep distance from, because I was so close to you, that there was a sense of, well, I could go for this ride as well. Pull back away from it, and not so much as does this make me feel heavy, sad, reflective, whatever, but what is it that I try to imagine what is that what was going on with you. In the same way that when you were running in over here towards Larry, I immediately felt panic, not because of what I imagined was happening for me, but I thought she's going to hurt herself. And and then I had to go into what is it that she is creating for herself, and I think that's from practice of, and how do I translate that into something else.
And this is where the further steps of our profession need to go. It's very valuable for us to know either our own blocks or, just who we are, where we're coming from, this year, this month, this minute, this day. That's personal. And then the empathy or the intuition, maybe both, and they're not the same, but they both come into play, is useful in feeling what a dancer is doing, or seeing and imagining what it must feel like. There's that kinesthetic alignment, or the kinesthetic, we address the kinesthetic. But our job is to provide sound for people to do this better in, or no sound at all, because of course we all know that some pieces do not need extra sound. And may I also add a point that every dance, if it has any life in it at all, should have its own energy, its own music, inner music, its own sound, if you will. And it's sometimes interesting to watch it in terms of that, but that's not the focus of this hour together. What sound does that movement have in and of itself? And then the next step is, and how do I participate as a sound maker in this so that it is enhanced, enlightened? It would be like a painter underlining something, not necessarily smushing out what's there or confusing it. No, look here, the painting, look here. No. But rather, here's a painting, and how can I participate so that it's enhanced or highlighted? So then we begin to think of the roles that music can take. Just as in jewelry, what kind of settings can a stone be put in? And it's as versatile as our personalities and as our imagination and as our abilities. But if we begin to look at our art, if we begin to look at what we do in this framework, we couldn't possibly become bored, even if, God forbid, the movement is boring. And hopefully no movement would be boring as we all educate each other to becoming our more total human and artistic selves. We can't stick with just the mental, and yet we can't stick with just the emotional. It's the unity in diversity, either between our mind and our heart, or between each other, the dancers and the musicians. But of course we have to stop this arbitrary alienation that we sometimes perpetrate almost unwittingly.
I was going to say is that sometimes in beginning comp classes, when I'm asked to do stuff on the spot for a beginning composition, I'm wondering if anyone else experiences or does this. I'm very verbal, and sometimes I just accompany by spontaneous poetry in words, which is not to say that's always my response, but I do it frequently, and I'm wondering if there's what I'm trying to say. Sometimes I don't feel it musically, I feel it emotionally, and sometimes I need to express it verbally. And
sure, well, that could be a part of the sound fabric.
What about the idea of acoustics, of where you're playing in the instrument, like the register of that instrument? If you're in the middle area of it, you have a certain quality and feeling, maybe a sense of wholeness.
Let's stay one level forward. Yes, I think that when our whole thing here was today, we were a whole list of qualities, and we were going to, go through some of them and do different things with them, and that's interesting too. And there's a whole lot of, I think, sort of personal research on it. Let me finish this. I want to finish this whole section up. And I think that we would go too long if we started in that, is my feeling.
Mhm.
So, which, I know, we miss the fun.
Were you feeling that, John?
But I wanted to get any more questions.
I just was wondering, there is the feeling in the instant, and then there's the form, or there's the kinetic link up of how Linda felt, where she went with that fall into the next thing, and that transition, and the phrase length, and how she was able to move from one place to the other. Seems to me that in terms of compositionally, for musicians, the biggest second problem. Okay, there's a feeling and there's a quality here, and how can I sustain this feeling in time? And phrase make.
There's a lot of related stuff here, isn't there, in other words?
That's why this job is so hard, we all know it, because the hardest thing to do, well, this job, this holy job.
Was Lyle talking about timbre? I mean, I don't know if you talked about this.
Yeah, I mean,
Did you talk about that?
No, but he
Because
doesn't know.
when you were talking about, kinesthetic response to sound or whatever, the whole question of timbre was begged by that,
Sure.
because if you played the same note on the synthesizer, play the same note on the cello.
I was talking primarily about registers
Well,
of the
it's the same,
instrument,
yeah,
and then you get into
registers.
the timbre of that particular instrument. What?
Registers, timbre, dynamics, they all make tremendous impact on us physically.
I tend to believe that is as diverse an individual as you say, though. I mean, I have particular feelings about registers on the piano that I know are just personal, that a certain register is for me because it's the range which I sing in. I mean, I know I often play the melody in my own singing register just because, and that's much lower than is typical, the melody typically happens on the piano. Usually, often a half lower, but it's because it's where it has more emotional weight for me, so,
There's two uses for this kind of stuff. One is with students, because half the job of students is we're developing their awarenesses. So, and they're at sometimes at a not very sophisticated level. So you use all these kind of things to get them thinking, to get them opened up, and to get them feeling more. The more one I'm really interested with us, though, is we're all very, very experienced. So where do you go from here in developing your own personal heightened awareness? What can we do when we've done this for years and years to heighten, to increase our own awareness, to increase the intensity of the moment? I'm not saying I have answers for this, but this kind of stuff where you re-look at the simple stuff again, I think is important.
What if we played some sounds and then they analyzed what was happening when we learned them?
Yeah, okay, let's keep an eye on the time here. I think we should.
That's what you said, since I think about it myself a lot, and I don't know how other people experience, but I have felt and feel, and probably will always feel, a continual lack of sufficient harmony on the piano. But
Say
in
that
every
again.
harmony at the piano, they call that here as well, harmonic practice, I know that when I'm getting in the dregs with playing, that the best thing to do is open good music and look at it and analyze something. Oh yeah.
To get something shifted, that's one way, right?
For me, it's to see some new choreography, like to see a different teacher or a different phrase, or see someone's different style. It's like
new.
Yeah, like rather than getting stuck with one teacher, and so to speak, stuck, personally getting stuck.
Yeah. See, those are the ways we usually do. We do get ourselves into new musical things, new physical things at the instrument, or new input things from a teacher. One of the things that I'm saying in kinesthetic, looking at it, is reacquaint ourselves with our own basic sensations. Heighten these too is another way. Heighten our own physical, sensory things. Re-stimulate these. I don't know if that's possible, but that's what I'm interested in. Yeah.
This is not necessarily available to everybody, but I find it's very handy at times to hang out with some kids. Because, as you're saying, if you need to be reacquainted with a fresh, new inquiry, you need to be with somebody who's inquiring new. So,
I mean,
Yeah.
you can borrow a kid, I have a daughter of
Yeah, we knew where this one was going.
Really, 6 months and you'll feel refreshed. Sleep deprivation.
Just a suggestion.
Yeah, take 5 more minutes, Bill.
What?
Take 5 more minutes.
Okay, and she suggested that we have talked too many words, and she's right.
Oh, here's some sounds.
So,
that'd be nice, wouldn't it?
since we can't start on the whole other thing, we want to end with some sounds. So should we play?
We just play a coda. Okay.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Having nothing to do necessarily with anything that's just preceded it.
So remember that, yes.
To do.
Yeah.
I won't feel like this.
when we were talking about this conference and deciding what the focus would be months ago, we thought that, and all these things have changed many times since this discussion, but one of the thoughts that we had was that there's beginning to be the possibility of training dance musicians, which is a new thing, because we always in the past had on-the-job training, and mainly that meant on-the-job failure, and that meant on-the-job drop out of the profession after 3 weeks, and on-the-job put down dance musicians because they must be hack musicians if they can stand that miserable life and everything like that. So now we're seeing that some programs have come into existence that Bill's doing and Karen Pollard in their universities to train dance musicians. And once the idea of training comes into being, then the idea of clarifying in our own minds what we do by intuition and trial by error and failure and correction of that failure becomes important, so that we can preserve people from those steps along the way. And so one of the pitfalls, and this is a very, very specific topic, is that when people first begin to play for modern, and they come from a background that is geared towards 4-measure phrases, they always run into trouble because some of the phrases aren't square fours. Maybe just me. How many people in this room have heard the phrase early in their career, "I'm terribly sorry, but the dancers can't hear the one of the phrase," or something along that line? Raise your hand. Never heard it, never heard it. So my discovery of this whole process actually came through ballet, not through modern. Because when I first started playing for ballet and would go into the class, I would have all this wonderful, wonderful music, and I knew the quality was right. I could see them jumping. I knew the quality, because I think that rhythmic quality I always had. So we'd start merrily away, and 30 seconds into the exercise, I'd look up and they'd all be staring at me. "We're on the wrong leg. That's right." Because I didn't think about the fact that the music was going along in its own phrase lengths and not necessarily in those square fours that it started out in. And for that reason, lots of music that's very danceable otherwise, lots of Mozart and Scarlatti and things like that, is not really usable for dance class unless you really severely mutilate it to turn it into square 4-bar phrases. But the counterpart to that is that because all that music uses not square phrases, we can actually look to that music for models when we go to non-square phrasing, which happens in modern dance. And if you look on the last page of this handout, I did a piece. This is actually a piece which I played for someone as a dance, someone in this room who will remain nameless. And this is a piece that's very famous, and it has a totally non-square phrase length. Let's see. I don't know if I can play it.
Yay.
Oh, I should play the second verse too.
From the top.
So that's 2 5-measure phrase lengths. And we have this marvelous example from Brahms, and when someone listens to it, a layperson, they don't listen to it and say, that's not a square phrase. That's not right. Something's wrong about that. They may get a sense of, you know, slight asymmetry or something, but he's cleverly worked it out so that we have a feeling that it's somehow right also. And so I think it's useful to look at something like that and say, okay, what works in that? How did that come out so that we feel pretty good about that music, even though it's not a four-bar phrase? So you can take an idea like that and extrapolate when you improvise. So for the same kind of phrase, I gave a couple of examples in a slower 5. That was a fast 5. If you look on the second page, I'm giving an example in a slow 4, so 5 measures of 4. And I literally just improvised these into